Hey everybody, Phil here, and welcome back to Comic Card Talk. And today we're going to be talking about Venom number 16. And I gotta say, if I haven't made it clear before in my previous videos, but I'm just going to say it now. I love Donny Cates' work. Guardians of the Galaxy, Silver Surfer Black, and especially Venom. Alright? His Venom series has been pretty amazing. I understand he hasn't written all of the issues. Issues 13 through 15 were written by Cullen Bunn as part of the War of the Realms crossover, which I haven't read. I haven't read War of the Realms, is what I mean. I haven't read any of Jason Aaron's Thor. I've heard plenty of good things, and I've heard plenty of good things about War of the Realms, so maybe at some point I'll check it out, but reading the Venom tie-ins was actually pretty good. And I could definitely see sort of a difference between how Cullen Bunn writes Venom and how Donny Cates writes Venom. When Cullen Bunn writes Venom, he wrote him as like, an average anti-hero of sorts, or an anti-hero with a heart of gold, so to speak. I know that he wrote Venom before. He wrote the Flash Thompson Venom series, and that was after Rick Remender had left. I didn't read Cullen Bunn's run, and I understand it ended earlier than it was supposed to, but heard good things about it. So reading his take on Eddie Brock's Venom as opposed to Flash Thompson Venom, however he did Flash Thompson Venom, well, when he wrote Eddie Brock, he seemed like a rough and tumble type of anti-hero with a heart of gold. Whereas Donny Cates, when he writes Venom, he really goes into what makes Eddie Brock tick and just how much further he can push Eddie as a character, not just as an anti-hero, but as a character. And Eddie, he's willing to do whatever it takes, but it can really mess him up. And I understand that Eddie Brock has been written as kind of a guy with a chip on his shoulder, but when you piss him off, ooh boy, you really don't want to get in his path, especially when he's Venom. But now we're seeing how he writes Eddie when he doesn't have the symbiote, because now he has to take care of his son Dylan, who he originally thought to be his little brother. Yeah, Dylan is his son by way of Anne Weying, his ex-wife, yeah. And Anne gave Dylan to Eddie's father because of what was going on with Eddie at the time when in his early days as Venom, and Anne just didn't want to have anything to do with Eddie as Venom anymore. So now Eddie has to take care of him because Eddie's dad was kind of abusive to Dylan, and being a single parent, especially in New York City, not quite so easy. I mean, at first it was tough enough having to help defend New York City from Malekith's forces, but now that all that's said and done, Eddie has to do whatever it takes to take care of his son, even going back to his former employer. And that's part of what this story is. Eddie going back to the Daily Globe, where he made his career as a journalist there. And then eventually that ended because of the Sin Eater fiasco, where he thought this person was the Sin Eater, but it turned out to be another person, and that caused a whole kerfuffle and caused Eddie to lose his journalism job and ruin his reputation and career. And that's sort of what led him to become Venom and go after Spider-Man for years on end, until eventually, okay, fine, we'll be reluctant partners if there's a desperate situation, like if Carnage is attacking. Speaking of Carnage, there is plenty of build-up for absolute carnage here. Like, Eddie is now just finding out that Carnage, Cletus Cassidy, is alive and well, and he is coming. Yeah, another thing that this issue does a bunch of remembrances, like, where the story is so far. Like, Eddie had to fight against Null, and he had to go up against the Maker and his own dad. Maker is Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe. yeah, that was kind of an interesting development there. But I mean, Ultimate Reed Richards becoming a supervillain. I mean, but hey, that's comics for you, I guess. Anyway, yeah, and we see how desperate Eddie's situation is. He's living in Rex's hideout with his son, but his son is getting sick, so he has to go back to his job, or try to go back to his old job, to make some extra cash to get medicine and food. And the Daily Globe does take sort of a chance on him. I mean, it's been years since that whole Sin Eater fiasco and his days as Venom, so see what Eddie Brock does. And he tasks Eddie to try to find some missing kids, or try to investigate the disappearing kids. And he does, but then he finds out that the person who's been kidnapping all these kids was the former Sin Eater himself. Or at least I think it was the person who pretended to be Sin Eater. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I remember about that story. But yeah, and he's possessed by Carnage. Carnage is raising the dead, sort of, I guess. And one thing that Donny Cates knows how to deliver when writing Venom is how to instill a sense of dread, because absolute carnage is coming, and this is kind of a prelude issue for that. So what Eddie just witnessed there was just a sneak peek of what's to come, because oh boy, Carnage, Cleus Cassidy's Carnage is one thing, but this is Carnage with Null's help, or Null's influence, so to speak. So there's going to be even more, carnage this time around. And like I've said before in my Silver Surfer Black and Guardians of the Galaxy videos, I'm just wondering, depending on how this event goes, I don't know if this is going to be the end-all, be-all, the culmination of what Donny Cates has been building up to, or, I mean, Donny Cates has been building up to this, but I don't know if this is going to be the culmination of that. I mean, because after Absolute Carnage, what's next? Because if Null is still around after that storyline, that means Venom is going to be like, crap, if this is what Null can do with Carnage, imagine what Null could do himself if he ever gets to Earth. So that means Venom might have to take the fight to Null himself, and he'll need help with that. Another thing that kind of confuses me, though, about this comic, actually two things that confuse me. All right, one, Rhino is on the cover. Rhino, where is he? I would have loved to have seen a Venom versus Rhino fight, but that's not in there. What the heck? I would have really loved to have seen Venom fight Rhino. I understand that Rhino is kind of trying to be a straight arrow now, and he just helped Miles Morales rescue a bunch of kids, but still, you have Rhino on the cover and you don't do anything. Or maybe this is just supposed to sort of signify, what life in New York is like in the Marvel universe. And Eddie Brock, he's there at the table just like, yeah, it's just another day in New York. But Dylan is like, what the heck? There's a guy in a Rhino suit going on a rampage. And Eddie's just like, just eat your ice cream, son. It's nothing really to get worried about. Okay? It's just don't worry about it. Rhino is rampaging through New York. You'd think that maybe Venom ought to do something, but he's just like, no, I'm spending quality time with my son. I'm not gonna worry about that. And oh yeah, the other thing that confuses me about this is that, okay, Carnage disguised himself as Eddie Brock and killed a lot of people in the raft, especially Lee Price, who's like one of the most recent Venoms before Eddie became Venom again. And yeah, he took out Lee's spine, because Lee was attached to the Venom symbiote, therefore some of the symbiote still remains in his codex, in his spine. So, and now he's dead, and Carnage killed a bunch of people and framed Eddie. So, when does this comic take place, before or after? Where is this in correspondence with that? And I think I saw in a preview catalog, Eddie's face plastered on a lot of TV screens and stuff. Wanted, maybe. Maybe that was a preview for Absolute Carnage. I don't know. But yeah, how is Eddie still going about just doing his thing without superheroes and the police and whoever, any other authorities coming after him saying, "Hey, Eddie, we need to take you in. You killed a lot of people." And Eddie's like, "No, I wasn't. No, I didn't. I didn't do that. That was Carnage." But it's clearly your face there. And that's you in the symbiote. That's your symbol. That's you there. But that wasn't me. It was Carnage. And I don't know. I mean, I understand. Yeah, so I understand that that was a free comic book day story. Carnage framing Eddie and all that. But I understand that kind of thing happens from time to time. Sometimes the publishing, shipping, whatever, distribution, that can get a bit skewed. So I don't know for sure if if that story had happened before this one, but yeah, it is kind of weird that Eddie can just go about the city and nobody's stopping him, saying that, yeah, you killed a bunch of people, you need to go, we need to take you in. I guess that hasn't happened yet. I guess Carnage killing all those people in the raft hasn't happened yet as of this comic or the previous issues beforehand. It's weird how that stuff works, but what can you do? Another thing that's kind of interesting is, and I don't know if this was the artist's intention or maybe that's just the way he draws Venom, but Eddie doesn't have the symbiote, but he imagines Venom as a persona in his head. And sometimes when he's going out doing vigilante stuff, like fighting the resurrected Sin Eater and all that, he imagines himself as Venom. But the way that Venom looks in this comic, he looks like how he did in the 90s, in the early to mid 90s, where instead of Venom being all black, he was more light blue or lightish, darkish blue, if I'm making any sense there. And there isn't so much razor sharp teeth. It's more like, just Venom is the black Spider-Man suit with a mouth. And sometimes he has big teeth, and sometimes he just looks really jacked up. So it's kind of interesting that Eddie imagines himself what he was like as Venom in his prime, in the 90s. And we see how he is in present day now, where he's like kind of a broken man now. He doesn't have his symbiote anymore. He's got a son to take care of. He's in New York City, doesn't have a lot of money, yet is somehow able to live in that hideout. Like, is the hideout all paid for by Rex Strickland before he got absorbed into Venom's symbiote? I don't know. But still, this was a pretty good teaser for Absolute Carnage. And Absolute Carnage is happening, I think, next month. So, be interesting to see how it pans out. Anyway, this is Phil. This has been Comic Card Talk. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care.